Hello, Hannah the Suburban Witch here, and today I am going to take you through the very first steps that you need to know to get started with the tarot. If you're new to my channel, I'm Hannah the Suburban Witch, a professional tarot reader and astrologer, professional witch, and the host of the Witch Talks podcast. I love bringing you all of my witchy spiritual tips here on YouTube. So if you like to learn more about this sort of thing, you'll want to hit subscribe and definitely like this video to show you girls some love. So today we are talking about getting started with the tarot. So welcome to this whole new world that you're about to embark on. I'm so glad to have you here and to help guide you through this journey. This is going to be so exciting. Now, the very first things that we need to address before you even think about buying your first deck is how you're coming to the tarot. Now, this can be different for so many people. Some people come to the tarot with a lot of fear. That's okay. That is a very common response and a very common experience for many people, myself included. So if you have any form of especially religious background or upbringing, that can bring its own challenges when you're trying to get into the world of the tarot. If you haven't had that influence, potentially you've grown up in a really spiritually open household, amazing. I love that for you. And you're probably just going to be like, I'd like to try tarot. Cool. I'm going to go buy a tarot deck. Great. How do I get started with this? And that might be what's brought you to this video. But if you have come from a religious background, I'm sure that journey has been a little bit different for you and a little bit difficult as well. My own journey was I heard a whisper in my head. No shit. I heard a whisper saying, buy a tarot deck. And I was like, oh, can't do that. That's evil. Like, that was my response, right? I had grown up in a very strict Pentecostal religious household. So I had to do a lot of work. It took me about a year to move past that and to actually take action and go and buy my first deck. And it was terrifying. So that influenced the style and the type of deck that I purchased. The deck that I started with is called the Shadowscapes Tarot. Now, I purchased this one because it felt pretty and ethereal and kind of like fairies, and it felt safe. It wasn't scary. The traditional imagery of some of the other decks was like, no, I can't do that. I'm not there yet, right? Now, this deck for me was great for me to learn, but it is not a deck that I recommend for beginners. And I'm going to show you why as we move through this video. But before we get to all of that, the first thing you need to do to get started with tarot is to buy a tarot deck. There are 3 ways that you can do this. The first is to be gifted a tarot deck. Now, there is a myth that you have to be gifted your first tarot deck, and that is an absolute myth. Just throw that out the window if that's what you think. You can absolutely go and buy your first tarot deck, okay? Now, you can do that from a wide variety of shops, new age stores, bookshops, Kmart, Big W here in Australia, they sell them, Target. So, you're not really confined to your location as long as you've got access to those, plus online as well. The last option is secondhand. So maybe someone passes it down to you. Maybe you look on Marketplace or on some of the tarot buy, swap and sell pages. So I'd probably recommend that if you need the budget option. However, it's going to have some wear and tear. It's going to have someone else's energy. So you're going to want to do a pretty heavy cleansing on that if that's the way you get it. Now, you're ready? You're like, sweet, I'm going to go buy my tarot deck. What one do I buy? There are thousands and thousands of types of tarot decks and different ones and different artists and all that stuff. So let's talk about the 3 main types of tarot that you might get into. So when it comes to the 3 types or the 3 systems that tarot can use, the first one and the most popular or the most common is called the RWS. Now, I don't have my original packaging for this because that box yeeted out of my existence long ago. But this is what you might see, this sort of imagery, these brighter colors and this sort of style of artwork. Now, the RWS or the Rider Waite Smith is named so because the Rider company was the publishing company that published the deck of cards. Waite is the last name of Arthur Edward Waite, an occultist from the early 1900s who crafted the meanings behind all of these cards and the way he wanted them to be, sequenced and that sort of a thing. And Smith is for Pamela Coleman Smith, who was the artist who drew all of the beautiful artwork that we see in this deck. Now, the Rider Waite Smith now has many ones like my Shadowscapes deck that draw off this system. So they are not the same deck, but they come from the same system. So this Shadowscapes is based on the Rider Waite Smith. Most tarot decks on the market come from the Rider Waite Smith system. This means it follows the same numerical sequence in the major arcanas. We'll get to all that, don't worry. It's just following the same system, okay? Another one is the Thoth tarot deck. This was created by controversial occultist Aleister Crowley, and also the artist was Lady Frida Harris. Neither of them lived to see the evolution of this deck actually coming to life, but they were the ones that instigated it. Now, this is slightly similar to the Rider Waite Smith. It's not a big jump, but some of the sequence, so the numbers in the major arcana, so some of the cards have switched in their order and in their meaning and in their names, and he's changed a few of the other names as well. So there are slight differences. It is a little difficult to go from one to the other, especially when you're starting out. Lastly, there is a French-originated deck called the Tarot de Marseille. It is very Italianate in style of the cards, and the pips, which is the minor arcana, don't actually have a scene depicted on them. They are just similar to a playing deck where you'll just see 5 of an item or 4 of an item. For like 4 of cups, you'll see 4 cups. So this is a little bit more difficult to actually read because you don't have any imagery or symbols to draw off. Similar in vein, we also have a playing deck that you can use to read tarot with. It is not technically a tarot deck. It doesn't have the right number of cards or the major arcana or any of that. This is my red light district pack of playing cards I've just whipped out for this video. But this is a very useful option if you don't want to go and buy a traditional deck, or you don't have access to one, or you're in the broom closet. You can definitely still use this. You're just going to have to rely a lot on rote memorization for this. If you are interested in learning how to read with a playing deck, I have a whole nother video specifically on that, which I will link down the bottom. So for the purpose of this video and for you getting started with the tarot, I recommend you start with that Rider Waite Smith. Okay. Now, in saying that, when you go to your bookshop and you're looking at the New Age section and you're like, okay, there's that Rider Waite Smith, cool, right? That's what Hannah said I should get. But oh my God, look at this alien one. Whoa, it's so cute. Oh, and you get that response, right? Maybe buy the alien one. Right? It just means a slightly different way of learning when you're starting. All of the Google definitions, when you're like, what does this card mean, are going to be based on the Rider Waite Smith. That's what makes it easy to get started with, because everything is built for learning with this style. And then you can branch out from there. But you don't have to, okay? There are no actual rules in regards to what deck you have to get. So if you're drawn to the bloody alien one or the Disney villains, go and try it, right? Go and try it. You're totally allowed to follow your interest in this regard. So what makes the difference between a tarot deck and an oracle deck? Because there's a ton of those out there as well. Well, a tarot is a deck of 78 cards, whereas an oracle deck can have anywhere from 10 cards to 150. It doesn't matter. All tarot decks follow a system of meanings. They have a system in place. There is traditional meanings behind those cards. They don't really deviate from that system too much. Whilst one deck might call cups, the suit of cups, shells, they're still going to have the same element, which is water. So I'm not getting too much into actually how to read this. This is just getting started. This is just buying your deck and just giving you some of the terminology that you might come across. All right, so you've chosen, whether it's the Thoth, the Marseille, the Rider Waite Smith, whatever you've chosen, right? Even a playing deck of cards. You've got your physical deck now. Sweet, amazing. So proud of you for jumping over that hurdle to get the actual physical deck in your hands. But now what? Now what do I do, Hannah? Tell me. Well, I'm going to help you. What we do is we sleep with it under our pillow. Yes, I'm serious. So you probably just want to get home and rip it open and look at it. Go for it. Do it. But I highly recommend that night, or as soon as you can, popping this deck underneath your pillow, right? If you're a super light sleeper or you're going to feel it too much under your pillow, pop it next to your bed. But you want to basically start that energetic connection with your deck. Now, some people like to cleanse it before they do that, just to like get rid of any energetic connections from the publishing company or the person who brought it through in the post or whoever had it before them, whatever. You can do that. So I've got other videos on how to cleanse things. So whether you use smoke, crystals, I wouldn't recommend using water, but you get the drift, right? You might put it out under the full moon. Next, you're going to sleep with it under your pillow for 1 to 3 nights. Like 3 is optimal, 1 is fine. Okay. And you can pull it out each day and then put it back there at night. That's okay. When I first started, I used to carry my deck in my handbag all the time. And that really served as a great way to form this beautiful energetic connection with my tarot deck. Now, I recommend you don't skip this step because, just a little side story, when I first got my Rider Waite Smith, which was the second deck I got after that first Shadowscapes, I remember talking to my mentor, who is a psychic medium, CB Bjork. And I said, hey, CB, I can't read with this new deck. Like, it's just not making sense to me. Maybe I should never have cheated on my original tarot deck. I'll just stick with that. And he went, oh, that's nonsense. Did you sleep with it yet? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. And he's like, we've talked about this. Go and sleep with your deck. And I was like, okay, sorry. And I did. Lo and behold, suddenly everything started making sense. And I was like, oh, I can read with this. All right, I just needed to form that relationship. Now, yes, it's a deck of cards. It's just paper with images on it, right? But there is some magic here. I'm not going to deny that fact. There is magic to it. Sleeping with it helps. Don't ask me questions. It's just the law. So the other thing, once you've bought your deck, you're going to need a tarot journal. Now, it doesn't have to be pretty. It can be a stack of plain paper. It can be like this. I bought this from Typo. It's just a little spiral notebound book. It can be a Google document. It doesn't matter. You're going to want to use your tarot journal to write down literally everything, not just the readings you do for yourself, so that you can look back and see if they came true, if they were accurate, because it is an excellent way to learn and grow and develop. But you also probably want to write down some of the things you learn, such as the numerical meanings of the cards, the meanings of the positive and negative aspects of the major arcana. Maybe you want to write down all of the element meanings. These are the things, the basis of forming a reading that you're going to want to know. It's an excellent place for recording a daily draw. I will have another video specifically on exactly how to do that. And you can also see in my spreads in this playlist, there's a video on tarot spreads for beginners and exercises. Definitely look into that one because that goes into a little bit more depth of what you do with the cards physically. This is all about just getting started, right? And you can also write down any websites that you find or YouTube creators that you like that go into, or even podcasts, right, that go into the cards or help you learn, so that you know you've got your sources there. You go, who do I look to? Who is resonating? And later on, you can look back and see who influenced your tarot development. I would now like to show you some comparisons between the different decks, some of the different decks that we've talked about. So I'm going to pull the same card in a couple of different decks just so you can see. This here is the 7 of Wands. So this is some of the imagery that you may see. So just as a quick little sneaky look into it, right? What do we see in this card? What is the figure doing? What is happening? What maybe happened just before he got to this point? And what's going to happen just after? That's a really great way to start looking at your cards intuitively. Before knowing the traditional meanings or going and looking up anything, just tune into, if I was this person, how would I be feeling? So in the Rider Waite Smith, it can be really good to see, okay, it looks like the odds may be stacked against him here, right? There's like 6 other people fighting against him. Fighting is a word that comes through, right? Combative, competitive. Now, if you take a really close look, you might notice that he has 2 different shoes on. Why? Why would Pamela Coleman Smith draw him with 2 different shoes on? Maybe he was rushing. Maybe he was rushing out the door. He's not really prepared. He's come to this fight unprepared. Okay? It has happened far quicker than he expected. And wands are quite fast. They are the fire element. Let's have a look at the same card in the Shadowscapes. We can see a fox and a badger circling one another. Like they are growling. They are not having a fun time. And again, we can get that combative, aggressive, competition, raring for a fight. Okay. Very close quarters as well. This is up close and personal to us. I also often get protective, right? Protective vibes. Maybe one of them is protecting themselves, fighting back. So you can see sometimes this imagery may help you with this one. So it can be really useful to have 2 different decks. Other times this might be useful if you then switch into another and you go, well, I know that one's quite competitive and combative, and I get that with this as well, right? Using different decks can be really beneficial, but when you're just starting, just stick with one. but at least you can see how the differences in decks start to come about. Now, remember the Thoth tarot deck that we were talking about earlier by Aleister Crowley? This is his version of the same card. Much more difficult to tune into intuitively, especially if you are just starting out. Now, this deck is rife with symbols. So if you have any knowledge of universal symbolism, you're going to be okay. If you don't, you're going to need to learn. Now, right in the top corner, we actually have a symbol or a glyph for Mars, the planet Mars. Mars is ruled by Ares, god of war. So we can get that sort of like war-like energy just from that one symbol, right? Mars can be quite combative and aggressive. Down the bottom, there is a word. That word is valor. So there's a lot here that comes through with this card, but it is a little bit harder if you're just starting out to see all of that. Hence why the Rider Waite Smith can be an easier deck to start with. Lastly, if all you have access to is a playing deck of cards, this is the same one. Now, if you pull that out, you're going to be like, I don't know, there's 7 things on there. 7 things are coming. I don't know what's happening, right? It can be really difficult. So you're actually going to have to go and be like, Google, what does 7 of clubs mean in the tarot, right? So clubs are going to be your wands. Remember, I've done a whole video on this if you want to go and check it out. But this one is going to be a lot harder to tune into intuitively. You're just going to have to learn by rote memorization. The other ones, it's so good because now if I pull this, I just bring up the image of the 7 of wands from my other deck. I'm like, oh, I know what that means. The image is so much clearer than if I just had this. So the number one thing is probably start with the Rider Waite Smith. Again, if you're drawn to another one, do it. I did that. That's fine. It also still works. But the Rider Waite Smith is going to be the easiest, okay, for you to get started with. Keep a journal of everything that you do with that. Sleep with it under your pillow. Cleanse it before you start if you wish. You don't need to be continually cleansing it afterwards because you're just going to take away any of the energy that you've built up with that deck as well. If you're reading frequently with other people, maybe, but you're not there yet. Lastly, I want you to think about ethics. Tarot reading as an industry is rife with scammers, and unfortunately, the general consensus is you're all frauds. It's not true. There are frauds out there though, just like there are dodgy car salesmen, there are dodgy tarot readers, but it's not all of us, okay? So I want you to make sure you are putting on your best look to the world because you are now representing this industry as well. So consider, what questions will you or won't you answer? What is ethical to you in your practice? Personally, with professional readings, I will not read for people on health, I will not read for people on pregnancy, and I will not do third-party readings. What does that mean? I won't read for someone on what someone else thinks about them. That other person hasn't consented to a reading, so I'm not going to dive into their energy. We're just talking about the person right here in front of me. So I want you to consider that before you even think about reading for someone else. Even when you're doing it for yourself, maybe don't look into what other people are thinking about you. Not a great energy to bring to it, but I'll leave that ethical and moral dilemma in your hands. You are capable and you are the one in control of your tarot journey. So I hope this video has helped you to get started with tarot. If you have any questions at all, feel free to drop them in the comments. I am all ears and I respond to pretty much every single comment on my YouTube channel. I have a ton of other videos in this playlist as well, such as Tarot FAQs, which is the frequently asked questions that people in my Instagram stories have about learning the tarot or reading with tarot. So if you have a question, it may already be answered in there. And I have a whole range of other exercises to help you get deeper with your cards. As always, I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are in the world today. Make sure to hit subscribe. And if you want to go and follow me on my other channels, I've got Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Patreon, where we do tons of work with tarot as well in our Facebook group. So we have a private Facebook group for my Patreon subscribers, and we do tarot development every single week to get deeper into those cards and so much more, of course. Happy tarot journey!